Welcome to the new episode of FunnelStory Podcast. This is the first podcast where we will recording live as a video podcast along with the audio one. So for this podcast, let me welcome my guests, Amir and Rishi. Rishi, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Alok, for having us here. I'm Rishi, currently co-founder of Descope. Prior to this, co-founder of Demisto, which was sold to Palo Alto Networks. I've been in product engineering and go-to-market roles for my entire life, focused on all B2B companies.
Thanks for having us, Alok, and a pleasure to be here with Rishi today. I'm the co-founder of Vorlon, which is a company that helps organizations to protect data in third-party applications. Before that, I worked with Rishi as one of the first sales engineers with Demisto, and later on with Palo Alto.
So we will focus a lot on your work on sales engineering processes during your history years, and of course, prior and after that. But let's start with Amir. Just for the benefit of everybody who is going to be listening to us, watching us, how did you make your journey in the field of sales engineering?
Well, I was actually on the other side, which many companies are, having the model of post-sale and pre-sale, not together. And I was a post-sale engineer, and I kind of wanted always to fix the broken challenges that we had in the post-sale side. So I wanted to move to the pre-sale to ensure a smooth transition to the actually post-sale side for the customers.
So let's go back. When did you start? Was it your first job? When did you start it? And when you started with your sales engineering, or it was like 3 or 4 years later? What was it?
So I'm an Israeli, so I did my military service after school, and then I went to college. I studied computer science, started to work in a support roles during my last year, then moved to developer roles. That's where I kind of wanted to see the impact of the product that I'm building with customers, which didn't happen back in 2007, I guess. We were mainly focusing about creating features and fixing bugs. That's where I kind of understood that I want to see more customers move to post-sale roles. That's where the story continued in the sales engineer.
Okay. So Rishi, I believe that you started your career much earlier, and your product manager career and sales engineering career, if I may say, started pretty much together.
So, I think very good job aging myself, saying you started your career much before that. But yes, so my first job out of college, it was like a proper job after my master's, was in 2001, which was an engineering job in a security startup. And very similar to what Amir said, right? So first I started as a software engineer, spent my first year building the product. As a startup, I was the engineer number 2, built the product. And then at that point of time, the CEO said, hey, we're starting to go in front of customers, Rishi, go sell the product. It's like, what do you mean sell the product? It's like, go meet customers, explain how you do. Go do a proof of concept. Very, very interesting. I think I still remember a foreign concept to me, because it's very different to be an engineer and build the product versus go explain what your product does to a customer and see it in their environment. It was a very scary experience, not just from the point of before we went into it, but at POCs, product did not think about all the edge cases. How does it deploy in the customer environment? Which, by the way, I think for me, that was this small stint, never had a formal sales engineering title. But that's the job of a sales engineer. You take what is given to you, and you then need to think through how does it deploy in customer environment? How does the customer use? Which also are the learnings that took me into product management. So that's kind of was my first, then says, okay, now that you know how the customer sees the product, then I took up the product manager role, and that was my entry into the product management.
So you actually, if I remember correctly, you were also very empathetic to the sales engineering role, even as a product manager. Tell you something about it.
Yeah, I think it's actually a very interesting question, Alok. In my opinion, the toughest job of all roles in an enterprise journey, and then I'm saying not leaving the engineering side behind, right? Engineers have their role in the ecosystem to build the amazing product, but product managers, sales engineers, sales, they all have one mission in my mind, right? The mission is to meet customers' need for them. The reason why I was very empathetic was a sales engineer and kind of did a lot of work with sales engineer even as a PM. Because sales engineers have no control per se to what the product roadmap is in most cases. They have very little influence on the customer's thinking and the environment. They can influence that. So they are in the middle. As customer says, I want this. Product says, you have this. Well, there's the gap. Who's filling the gap? The soft sales engineering is filling the gap there. They are making duct tape and glue make the product work. And we did a lot of that in the early days of Demisto, which eventually the good news was went back into the product, all the playbooks, everything we built. But that's why I'm very empathetic because they are the front line. They are taking a product in whatever shape they are and deploying it.
So that is the perfect segue to talk about how did you guys start working together? What was it like? Tell us the story. So what was it like from both of your perspective? What were the products that you saw, what was sold to you as something and what he was trying to sell you? Let's talk about those stories of those times.
Yeah, so I joined a little bit after the first GA when I think we had like 1 or 2 customers.
Yeah.
And we actually lost a big deal that we learned a lot from. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the names here, but it's a big company. And I think that's mainly what attracted me. Like I like Rishi told me about this deal, and I think that's where it was not 100% that he lost it, but kind of he saw the vision and we talked about like what's the potential. And I don't know, I fell in love with the story, the opportunity. And I think as Rishi said, like as a sales engineer, you need to know that what you sell, you have a full faith in it. And I think that was my click right now.
So when you saw a first sales engineer, why did you hire a sales engineer that amount of time?
Yeah. I think to me, again, I'll go, maybe the question, Alok, is the right characteristics of a sales engineer. I think one is empathy to the customer, being a brand ambassador of the customer back to the product teams, fearless to represent it back. And I think I'll again, very important because what you don't want is a sales engineer to not express that the product is broken, the product is broken. And they say it's like we lost a big deal. Okay. As a company, you need to admit it, you lost a big deal. You need to list all the 20 things why you lost that big deal to a customer, to a competitor. And those characteristics, being empathetic, being completely transparent, being bold, being brave, to bring that data back is super critical. And I think that is, from my perspective, soft characteristics of a sales engineer to look back when I look back at those days. And then I think from there on, there's a lot. And I hope we get to talk about as you scale your sales process. This is the early days, right? Like where you're actually going, you're almost like some of our competitors were 18 months ahead of us. It's like you're going to a fight with a knife and the other person actually has a gun. And that's how it feels. And by the way, every startup is like that. No startup has all the 200 features that you're going to go disrupt. That's how it's done.
Absolutely. So, Amir, you and I actually we were chatting about as a preparation to this podcast, and you did mention to me about how much you thought about use of data while you were structuring the POCs, how you were deriving intelligence about the POCs. I know that you did that, but I want to go to the thought process that led you to be there. Like, why were you thinking? And the reason I ask this question is that I have been a product manager for almost like 13 years now and started pretty much in the same trenches where Rishi started a few years after him. But we had a very human interpretation of a sales engineer. They knew what they were doing, and it was a lot of art where they used their own science or art and how they got these things. We knew and we got the feedback and we were happy about it. But what you guys are attempting was to use a lot of data to kind of think through that. So what brought you there? Why? And like, why do you start thinking about it and what data you use?
So I think many people think that the work of a sales engineer is just to run a demo. And I think that from day one, we realized that if you want to get your people involved in the deals and understanding what requires to win. It's not about the demo that you're doing and the way that you're talking about your product, but there are so many other variables that you need to understand. I guess the data aspect came more into place when we experienced a very good high growth, but we also had less people that could have worked on these deals. So we need to start to look at the data, what actually worth our time and how do we attack it and what is common to different customers so we can actually mimic the same scenario and work less. So it was a combination, I think, on our stage and also the understanding that we actually want to come more prepared and to understand how we can win each one of these POCs or deals from a technical perspective.
Tell me more about it. Let's say, talk about a scenario where you thought that the data helped you and what kind of data you were looking for.
So in what stage do you mean, like at the early stage or later
Early
on?
stage. I mean, any example that you want to look for. It might be early stage, mid stage. Basically,
Maybe I'll cover something. Alok. I think it's very interesting in that small blurb. Amir and a lot of what went through. It's been more than 4 years. We need to look back, right? But he pointed out like it was the time when we were scaling. I still
it
remember
was around 2017, 18.
2017. Yeah. I remember Amir and I sitting down and trying to model this with heated discussions as we always had, which is how many SEs per salesperson. Everybody wants 1:1, right? Every salesperson wants 1:1. I am a big believer in efficiency is very, very important. It's like, okay, Amir was like, okay, let's try 2:1. It's like, okay, but now hold on. If you do 2:1, you cannot just say 2:1. Why 2:1? It's like, okay, your sales quota is 1.2 million per salesperson. You do 2:1, that means your SC quota becomes 600. What is your ASP of a customer? ASP of a customer is, if we wanted it to be north of 120, but let's say at that early stage, we were at 80. So how many deals do you think a person needs to do? 600K divided by 80. You get the number of deals. Now, how many deals, how much time does a POC take? So basically, literally, we went through this analysis, became very clear that to get the efficiency that we want in the system, we want repeatable deals. We want to put a structure what a POC is like. And that is a data problem. Like we were in a very tough spot, by the way, as you think about from the scaling perspective. Demisto as a product can do anything. Anything. Automation product can do anything. What does that mean? It can do anything. Every customer can want us to do anything. This is all Amir, which is like go through all those deals and says, what is it? So I remember list of spreadsheet. These are the playbooks people are wanting.
Yeah.
Why is this playbook the most common one? And then what came out of that long exercise, Alok, is like a template POC. Here is the 3 playbooks we will build. We will only build 3. We will not build 5. We will build those 3 in 2 weeks. But that's generally, and then there were outliers. Like, why is this customer, a crazy customer with 20K deal, POC 9 months? Is like, why? And then as it turned out, it was a good customer. Why? By the way, some of those outliers are good to know. Very, very large customer, $1 million+ customer in Middle West, but the sales guy had marked it as 20K because there was no budget. Worth doing it. By the way, the point is once you start to look at these things, you find what is common. And when things are not fitting that common build, okay.
Because you are in a pre-product market fit or just product market fit, and you don't know how much you can grow, expand. So a lot of doing these trials is an exercise to grow and expand your horizon. Of course, you want to have your ideal customer profile, but you grow that way. So tell me, there would be a scenario like you just mentioned about this, where the approach about using data became decisive because you realized that you had a moment where you saw that, wow, the use of data helped us significantly here. I mean, it's overall of a specific instance, do you can recall something like that?
The playbook is probably you want to talk like which playbook is common.
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the efficiency, once we learned what is more common, it was just like plug and play. Like we knew where do we want to start? What are the measurement, or how do we measure it as a success? What do we show to the customer? And instead of just coming and asking, dear Mr. Customer, what do you want to see from an automation tool? We were very much focused to kind of showing how we can resolve some of his probably key challenges that they had back then and still now. And in a short time, that kind of kept us focused.
So you identified a specific playbooks, a couple of playbooks that were working more than others. And
Yeah.
for this customer, that kind of playbook, let's just get the deal in this many months.
Yeah.
So now coming to like, I also know that you guys, because your product was automation, so a lot of things, the idea of interacting with customers, you were automating a lot. And now you have been a big fan of automation in the marketing side.
Yeah.
What kind of automation you guys did on the sales engineering side? Amir, first to you on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's all you. Amazing how what all hangs together.
Yeah, it's actually started from our customer success, and I was kind of adopting the philosophy around what they did. But we used actually Demisto to automate all of our sales engineering process, because Demisto had a module that was an incident case management. So we changed it to tracking your sales engineer activity. It was integrated with our Salesforce, so we could pull all the top deal or based on specific severity and everything. And from a management perspective, we could have actually know where do we want to focus. And from the sales engineering side, they also added all their information around roadblocks, so we can to R&D or to PMs. What does the customer think? What is the feedback about specific use cases? What kind of use cases did we implement? And also to upload all these use cases so we can actually work with the same files with different customers. So we actually build a full blown sales engineering product with the Demisto because it was so customizable.
I remember, Alan, to your specific question, where did we like all of this work? I remember what started to become really apparent from the product or go-to-market side for us. I remember we started a weekly POC call, internal call, to review POC. It's common practice, right? We, on purpose, by the way, kept it separate from the sales forecast call, because sales forecast call, the roadblocks of the product in a sales process completely get lost.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you will talk big numbers. This one integration needed completely get
Not a good idea to put engineers and sales guys in the same room.
Yeah.
Both
It was a very good idea. And then that call with the data becomes super efficient. From the system that Amir and team worked on had integrations needed by this customer. Each POC, for each customer, integrations needed. Do we have it? Commands needed. Do we have it for those integrations? Playbooks needed. Do we have it? And not needed in next week, in 2 weeks, because you want to finish the POC. You have it in front of you in a system, just makes life so easy. Because what happens is the first few customers, this thing will be an increasing list. And then it became a decreasing list. Same playbook started to appear. So the playbooks that one SC builds, another SC uses by downloading it, running on. Just discovering the use cases in each POC and the roadblocks that you're running in integrations was insightful, because now you are, it's very simple, and it's simple for engineering to prioritize. The guys, these are the POCs going on. Your next week's task is this. That's all. So just getting that structure in place, that data in place, that teams talking was beautiful.
So you use this data and automation both in pre-product market fit and post-product market fit. Where did you find the most useful, or is it both or something like that?
I think I truly believe, like in most startups, you have to do unscalable things in the beginning, right? Non-repeatable, unscalable things. You got to do that. The use of data could be in both places, honestly, but you don't have enough data in pre-product, right? Like it depends, by the way, it has changed in the world. We are playing now Descope from an authentication platform is playing, and now I have a lot of data, even pre-product market fit. A lot of customers we have talked to. So if you talk to enough customers, then the data can help
You can start to begin
Start
the
to-
early model hypothesis model.
So you can build an hypothesis, but once you start to sell, then you put really that hypothesis to test, and then you keep tweaking it.
So the idea here is to have a hypothetical model built out so that you should benefit from data and automation to begin with a hypothetical model, and then let the model improve over a period of time, because that should lead you ideally to your product market fit, both in terms of product, but also in terms of go-to-market fit.
Exactly.
So if you were to advise companies to basically how to approach, especially the B2B, and I'll ask you a question about product-led growth later on, but a lot of companies, even today, 90% of them in a B2B enterprise are sales-led or sales engineering-led. That's how the word is. So if you had to advise how they should use data and automation based on your guys' experience, what will be your advice?
I think first, all the data in e-automation kind of expose the big picture to every group in the organization in any aspect. Because once you start to collect data, and if you are doing it in an efficient way, you're automating it, I think it allows other group in the organization to learn about the different state that you are in, even in the sales cycle. So I think that the more you will gather data into a one central location, that can help you to see the big picture. And that's obviously being done with a different integration that can connect today to the different application.
What kind of data was most useful from an individual sales engineer perspective? Let's say you wanted to send a sales engineer, sales engineer to a POC fight, build that POC. What from your perspective, he or she should know beforehand, before going into the POC from a data perspective?
So first of all, obviously, all the information that was collected in the earlier conversation by the SDR and the sales rep, just to get a full understanding of the landscape, where we are heading, who is involved in the deal. Do you have a specific competitor? What do they offer? Everything, every intel that you can know, and then also about the budget cycles, or if this is a new tool that they're doing on board, usually how long does it take to onboard new product to the company? So a lot of things in that helps with the dynamic when you work with your counterpart on the customer side. I think helps you to build the trust and understand where they are coming from, so you can actually help them to solve the challenge that they're looking to solve.
So let's go to the next level. You are a sales engineering manager or director, and you are looking to guide your sales engineer with the use of data. So at that point, what kind of data you would be looking for with your strategy and with your operations?
A lot of it is what I just mentioned. I think like come ready and understand. The other aspect is know the time frame and what your sales rep is working on, because that will help you to prioritize also your effort. And especially if you're not working with 1-to-1 ratio, you need to kind of juggle so many balls in the air. So you need to know also when your actual business partner working on, you need to know how exactly he sees things. And I think that our responsibilities as a manager was to then focus in a way that there are a lot of conversation and dynamic that happens that they are not involved in, and committing to things or not, but you still want to motivate them, close the deal obviously, but also not to kind of hit the gas neutral, I would say.
Yeah, okay. I think one thing interesting I will mention, I want to stress upon that, make sure we emphasize. It's very hard for an individual sales engineer to commit to a certain thing that may not exist, right? I mean, one of my learning was as we went through the hyper growth at Demisto was for our tools like Demisto, customer can have any use case in their mind. We changed our narrative, and that was all based on the data that we collected. Rather than saying, what would you like, is the narrative changed to most of our customers want these use cases. Let's start there. Suddenly you avoided the blocks that you may go down further? Because now you just scoped the POC.
I had a brilliant observation because something comes to your mind. One of a great engineer I used to work with at Shipler said, whenever I used to say, let's give a user a lot of option. And he used to come back to me and said, look, our tool was taught developers that if you give developers too much option, they are going to build a long rope with them, hang themselves. Choice is not a good idea. Restrict choice, it is a very counterintuitive thing, but in a sales process or your product process, reduce choices. It helps people.
I agree. And I think it's the why give choice? Because the goal again, I think the way to think about Alok is the goal of POC in an enterprise sales cycle is to prove the value to the customer. Now, reducing choice does not mean you prove something completely that they don't want. You're not going to be able to implement no enterprise software. You can implement everything that the customer wants in a 2-week, 3-week.
So let's talk about product-led growth. And the reason is that, like it happens for every kind of phenomena, everybody starts to have a hype cycle at the top of the curve that the world is coming to an end. And one of the things is if you have a product-led growth, product will sell everything. What will sales engineers do? I have my own opinion, but I want to listen to you. What do you think, guys? Like from a sales engineer, how they will exist in a product-led growth?
Again, I hate to answer questions without definitions when especially they involve headwords. So I think let's go peel the onion a little bit, right? One is the product-led growth, in my definition, means product-led, not product only is the only contributor in growth, right? Very important, right? Because product-led means you start with the product is the first class citizen. People start by trying the product. Now, does that mean nobody needs to touch it? Does that mean you just go buy it? I mean, even if you look at the B2C world, a lot of the products, they actually eventually the buying happens after the trial. I'm talking digital products. You start trying something and then somebody is helping you get there, get done. So in most cases, there is assistance needed. Now, assistance could be 2 types of assistance. One is assistant, which is technical assistance to make the whole product work. Second is sales assistance, because the deal is a large deal. They started with a file. So let's leave the sales side aside, because in my opinion, there is absolutely even a role for sales teams in the product-led growth. With sales engineering, the way I think about it is, it's just the name is changing. We've been living in this world. Amir has done roles on both sides. We debated at Demisto, what is customer success engineer and a sales engineer difference? The characteristics are the same. We are brand ambassador of the customer. Be brave enough to put the customer's problems back to the engineering. Take the product represented in the best way possible to the customer. Understand customer's environment. So same characteristics, both for customer success engineers and sales engineers. Why do I mention that? I feel that if your product is truly designed to be self-service, and I'll use self-service rather than designed for product-led growth, designed for self-service where people can come and try the product, maybe the right model is that the customer success engineering teams, or people call it customer success managers, I believe there needs to be engineering and managers differently, but customer success engineering and sales engineering is the same. Because you onboard, you run through that cycle, you are doing the same thing because characteristics are the same. You just need to figure out what's the compensation model and how does that work. But the role is not going away. I think eventually, if your engineers spent months to years building a product, a new person who's coming onto the product is not going to be able to learn on their own. The simplification is part of it. Most of the products are not that simple.
And I just kind of add to that, when you were talking about the reduction of choice may be possible for certain kind of products, but there are certain products which would always have more choice.
So what is reduction of choice? The reduction of choice is the first entry. Go try to sell to a large enterprise, a large bank. No product will sell with one feature, right? You're going to have 20 features. They will work differently. They will have configurations. Somebody needs to understand and explain those configurations. Whether you do it before sales or right after sales or somewhere between, that's what changes.
Is that
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's funny. I'm actually testing now different recording and transcript tools, and there are so many in the moment, and they're all PLG in a way. But I think out of the three that I was playing with, I think I spoke with actually the three support teams, just because I didn't know where is the recording, where is the transcript is hidden. So there is always something, even if it looks so intuitive. So I very much agree with what Rishi said. The name might change. Maybe, it will unify everyone under one hat. Compensation model, this is something that will be interesting to see how it will change with time. But I agree. Like
the motivation will be different. Actually, that I want to kind of go dig deeper into this question because this is interesting. Even at my last company, Shipwreck, where the product is the first one to get somebody in most of the cases, because you can hire yourself. The first audience who is going to sign up is going to be a technical person. And the debate always has been what kind of a person should approach that kind of a user. Sales guy or sales engineer, or sorry, sales development of SDRs never look like the right person to approach that person directly because the person has already qualified themselves, they're trying to use a product, and mostly they'll get stuck in the product. And the question was, well, should a sales engineer should go in there or a customer success engineer should go there? What is your take? Or they are the same, like you were saying?
Like this one is a little bit tricky. So first of all, in my mind, customer success engineer, sales engineer are the same. You can give your title, you can define the compensation before, after. That's what happens, right? You could do the handoff, you can choose to not do the handoff. You have the same person continues on the customer journey. But I think that the bigger question you're asking is, if it is product led, where the customer comes and tries the product, is the SDR the right person to bring them? Not sure. And I'll leave this answer not sure for a few reasons. It depends on the persona. So let's, rather than again putting titles, you need somebody who's persistent and diligent enough to make point with the customer. And this is very interesting. Even when I am a customer, I sometimes get excited about the product, but that is not my primary, like that's not top of mind. I don't want to buy it today. If somebody pings me and says, hey, Rishi, would you like to move forward with this implementation? I would absolutely pay attention and maybe buy it before, or maybe buy it sooner than what I would buy it when it comes to it. So I think what is critical in the sales life cycle, and we are going through this journey right now as well, is when a customer engages with you, engage back. Engage back very tightly. And we had some very strict rules in Demisto of engaging back with the customer. Don't only engage back when they engage with you, proactively reach out. Like if the customer did not talk to you for a week, should you leave them alone? Or should you ping them back? Should absolutely ping them back within reason. And the reason, getting back to your question, if the sales engineering or CSC role has the discipline to do a proactive, repeated reach out within reason, you don't want to be spamming these people, then you don't need an SDR. But if they cannot, then you need an operations, an SDR, whatever you want to call it, be on top of those things that at least did somebody touch it, did not touch it. But don't give a customer a reason. Like SDR cannot go to the customer and say, let me bring a sales engineer in to do the job. That's a waste of.
Yeah. So let's go slightly deeper into kind of more tie and back the notion of data and automation. You know the customer, you have some idea about it. Should the touch point be automated or should be human? When should you bring the human in? And I'm asking this question because the moment you open up for a self-serve or product like growth model, velocity, how much you can handle and how quickly you can engage, it becomes a question where the sales engineers are very expensive. Like this is,
I agree. I think it's I'm very passionate about this. It's like tools like Outreach and many others change the SDR world completely. Yeah. You need that touch point in the technical sales world. Absolutely. Automatic engagement, understanding customer behavior and what part of the journey they are in. Yes, you do need that. And that will assist. I'm a believer with all the chat GPT talk. and all the hype around that is like, it's part of it, guys. Don't worry. The AI is not going to take our commission, is not taking over the world. So there is a role for humans. That's what I would say.
So that was a great discussion with data and automation and the prospect of sales engineering, especially in a product-led world. How they did what they did at the time of taking Demisto to such high growth environment. What were the suggestions for the new age of companies that are coming up? When both of you are in the same company, now you have started both your own. So it basically looks like we will someday will call it the Demisto mafia, if I can spreading word around and creating a lot of product. That always happens.
Yeah.
I will say this again, and I'm very fond of repeating this. 12 years back, Rishi and I was in the same single business unit called Risk and Compliance. We had our lead, admittedly, sorry, Risk and Compliance, and our lead was a gentleman named George Kurtz, founder of CrowdStrike. His deputy and was the silence used for Matthew, another big exit. Then we had Slavik and Rishi both in the same business unit. In fact, all four founders were in the same business unit pretty much, and they created this company. Then we had my fellow product manager, Rajamani, who now had Sentinel as a chief product officer. I believe I'm missing out a lot of things. There is the risk and compliance mafia leading the Demisto mafia.
So just tell me where to sign. Now I'm happy that you will mention that as well. Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
That was a good discussion. Yeah.